The black mechanic fixes a Hells Angels leader's Harley with unmatched skill. Instead of praise, he's fired the very next day by his jealous boss. But what happens next, the betrayal, the ambush, and the revenge that follows, will shock you more than you can imagine. Marcus Carter had always known the language of engines better than the language of men. He grew up in the back streets of Oakland, California, where money was scarce, but broken-down cars were everywhere. As a boy, while other kids played ball, Marcus scavenged junkyards, learning how to breathe life into rusted machines. His late father, a Vietnam vet who once drove trucks for a living, taught him the basics before illness took him away too early. By the time Marcus was 17, he could rebuild an engine blindfolded. By 30, he was the best mechanic in Rusty's garage, a greasy little shop on the edge of town. But Rusty, the shop owner, never truly valued him. Rusty was a stout white man with nicotine-stained fingers and a permanent sneer. To him, Marcus was just the black guy who works the hardest and complains the least. Clients came in asking for Marcus by name, but Rusty always downplayed it. "He's just one of my boys," Rusty would say. Truth was, Marcus kept that garage alive. He handled the tough jobs, the custom builds, and the emergency fixes that paid the bills. His dream was simple, to save enough money to one day open his own garage. A clean, honest place where skill mattered more than skin color. Every month he tucked away a small part of his paycheck into a coffee can at home, even though most of it went to taking care of his younger sister, Kayla. She was in college studying nursing. "Just focus on your books," Marcus would tell her. "I'll handle the grease." Life was hard but steady, until one night a sound came rumbling down the block that would change everything. It was close to closing time at Rusty's garage when the roar of a Harley shook the ground. Marcus looked up from under the hood of a Chevy and felt it before he saw it. The motorcycle that rolled in wasn't just any bike, it was a monster. A custom Harley-Davidson, low-slung, with chrome that caught the fading sunlight like fire. The rider who dismounted was even more intimidating. Tall, built like iron, with a beard streaked with gray and eyes cold as steel. The leather vest he wore bore the infamous insignia, the Hells Angels' Death's Head. Rusty paled the moment he saw the man. "Steeljaw Dalton," he whispered, as if saying the name too loud might summon bad luck. Rick Steeljaw Dalton was no ordinary biker. He was a captain in the Hells Angels, a man known for his ruthlessness on the streets and his obsession with his Harley. The bike was practically his soul, but right now that soul was in trouble. The engine rattled, the clutch smoked, and the frame looked like it had been sideswiped in a brawl. Rusty stepped forward, stammering. Mr. Dalton, sir, we don't usually Steeljaw cut him off with a glare. The bike needs fixing. Tonight, no excuses." Rusty's hands trembled. Taking jobs from the Angels meant risk. Screw it up and you'd disappear. Refuse and you might disappear faster. "Maybe we're not the right shop for this," Rusty began. But Marcus stepped out from under the Chevy, wiping his hands on a rag. He studied the Harley the way a doctor studies an X-ray. "It's the carb, maybe the timing chain too. The frame's bent near the fork. Give me a few hours." Steeljaw turned, sizing him up. "You can fix her?" "I can make her better," Marcus said simply. Rusty hissed, "Marcus, don't, but..." Steeljaw's eyes narrowed, then softened with something close to respect. "All right then, do it." That night, Marcus worked like a man possessed. He stripped the Harley down, cleaned every part, and welded the frame with perfect precision. His fingers danced across the steel like a pianist on ivory keys. He stayed long after the garage closed, sweat dripping, sparks flying, and the radio humming quietly in the background. At midnight, Steeljaw returned. Marcus rolled the Harley out, gleaming under the shop lights, purring like a beast reborn. Steeljaw swung a leg over, turned the key, and the engine roared to life, smooth and powerful. He took it for a spin around the block, the sound echoing like thunder. When he came back, there was a rare grin on his face. "No one's ever made her run like this. You got hands of gold, kid." He reached into his vest and handed Marcus a thick roll of bills. "Keep it. You earned it." Marcus hesitated, but accepted. Steeljaw gave him one last look, a nod of respect, then rode off into the night. Marcus stood there, heart pounding, feeling like maybe, just maybe, his life was about to change. What he didn't know was that by the next morning, everything he had built would come crashing down. The next morning, Marcus showed up early to the shop, expecting Rusty to be proud or at least relieved that the Hells Angels job had gone smoothly. Instead, the old man was waiting for him with a sour look on his face and a cigarette dangling from his lips. "We need to talk," Rusty said flatly. Marcus frowned. "What's up?" Rusty closed the office door behind them, smoke curling around his bald head. "You're fired." Marcus blinked, thinking he'd misheard. "Fired? For what?" "I've been carrying this place on my back." Rusty sneered. "Don't give me that crap. You went behind my back and made some kind of side deal with that biker trash. I don't want Hell's Angels sniffing around my garage. Bad for business." Marcus's chest tightened. "There was no side deal. The man came in, you wouldn't touch the bike, so I fixed it. That's my job." Rusty leaned forward, his eyes mean. "Your job is what I tell you it is, and if I don't trust you, you don't get a job." For a moment, Marcus stood frozen, the years of loyalty and sweat flashing through his mind. He thought about the countless nights he stayed late fixing cars and the weekends he skipped with Kayla to keep the shop running. "After everything I've done," Marcus muttered. Rusty's voice was cold. "You should be grateful I kept you around this long. Don't make a scene. Just clear your tools and go." Humiliation burned through Marcus like acid. He packed his worn toolbox in silence, each clink of metal echoing in the empty shop. Rusty didn't look at him as he left. Outside, the morning sun was blinding, but Marcus felt only darkness. He walked to his old beat-up pickup, tossed his toolbox in the back, and sat there gripping the wheel. Fired, just like that. Years of loyalty erased overnight. As he drove away, he had no idea that Rusty's betrayal was only the beginning. Later that afternoon, Marcus sat at a corner booth in a small diner on the edge of town. A plate of cold eggs sat untouched before him. He stared out the window, wondering how he was going to pay Kayla's tuition, how he was going to keep his dream alive. That's when the bell over the diner door jingled, and the room seemed to shift. Steeljaw Dalton walked in, his presence filling the place like thunderclouds rolling over a field. The bikers at the counter nodded respectfully. The waitress stiffened. Steeljaw scanned the diner until his eyes locked on Marcus. He walked over, heavy boots thudding against the tile, and slid into the booth across from him. "Rusty fired you," he said. "It wasn't a question." Marcus looked up, startled. "How'd you?" Steeljaw smirked. "Word gets around. I went back this morning to thank you, and that snake told me you were gone. Said you weren't fit for the job." Marcus clenched his fists under the table. Steeljaw studied him, then leaned in. "I don't like liars, and I don't like cowards. You're neither. You saved my bike. So here's the deal, I want you working for me." Marcus blinked. "For you? As what? A gang mechanic?" Steeljaw shrugged. "Call it whatever you want. My crew's bikes take a beating. I need someone I can trust, someone who doesn't half-ass it. You'll get paid more than that greasy bastard ever gave you." Marcus hesitated. The Angels weren't just bikers, they were outlaws, criminals. He'd heard the stories: drug running, violence, wars with rival gangs. Getting involved meant walking a dangerous line. "I'm not one of you," Marcus said carefully. "I don't drink, I don't fight in bars, I don't." Steeljaw cut him off with a wave. "I don't need you to be one of us, I just need you to keep our machines alive. That's it. No blood on your hands unless you put it there yourself." The waitress refilled Marcus's coffee, hands shaking. Steeljaw leaned back, arms folded. "Think about it, you're out of a job. You got bills, I can see it in your eyes. Don't waste your talent fixing clunkers for scraps." Marcus thought of Kayla, of the coffee can savings jar, barely a quarter full, of Rusty's sneer as he told him to get out. He met Steeljaw's piercing gaze. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll do it." Steeljaw smiled, a rare, wolfish smile. "Good man. Welcome to the road." The next few weeks pulled Marcus into a world most men only saw in nightmares or movies. The Hells Angels clubhouse was a fortress of beer-stained floors, smoke-filled rooms, and engines growling like caged beasts outside. At first, Marcus kept his head down, working in a corner of the compound where the bikes lined up like soldiers. He rebuilt engines, replaced chains, customized exhausts, and fine-tuned carburetors. The bikers watched him closely at first, suspicious of an outsider, but respect in their world wasn't given, it was earned, and Marcus earned it fast. When a member's Harley wouldn't start before a run, Marcus had it purring in minutes. When another wrecked his front end in a crash, Marcus had the fork straightened and reassembled before dawn. Soon, bikers who once ignored him slapped him on the back and called him Doc. Still, Marcus never forgot who he was. He didn't drink with them till dawn and didn't join in their fights. He went home at night, back to his small apartment, back to Kayla when she visited on weekends. He told her half-truths about his new job, saying only that he worked freelance. But he couldn't deny the money was better, much better. His bills got paid. He bought Kayla new textbooks. He even added more cash to his savings jar. One night, Steeljaw sat in the garage with him, drinking whiskey while Marcus tuned his Harley. "You're different," Steeljaw said suddenly. "Most guys who walk in here want to be tough, want to prove something. You just work." Marcus shrugged, not looking up from the engine. "I fix things. That's what I do." Steeljaw studied him for a long moment. "That's why I trust you, and trust is rare in this life." For the first time since his firing, Marcus felt like maybe he belonged somewhere, not as a thug, not as a criminal, but as a man who turned chaos into order and metal into life. But the outlaw world had sharp edges, and soon Marcus would find himself caught on them. By late summer, Marcus had become a fixture in the Hells Angels compound. He was the one they trusted before long rides, the one they turned to when their lives depended on their machines. But the outlaw world was never quiet for long. One evening, Marcus was finishing up Steeljaw's Harley when something caught his eye. The bolts on the fuel tank looked tampered with, and a faint smell of gasoline lingered in the air. He frowned, leaned closer, and saw a small device wired near the ignition, crude but deadly. It was a bomb, meant to ignite the fuel line the moment the bike roared to life. Marcus's pulse quickened. He carefully disarmed it, sweat rolling down his face. Moments later, Steeljaw walked in, lighting a cigar. "Is she ready?" he asked. Marcus held up the device. Steeljaw's eyes went cold. "Who put that there?" Marcus shook his head. "Somebody wants you dead." The room darkened with tension. Within hours, word spread. The rival gang, the Vultures, had made their move. Steeljaw slapped Marcus on the shoulder. "You just saved my life, Doc." But Marcus knew the truth. He was no longer just a mechanic. He had been dragged into the war. Days later, the real blow came from a place Marcus never expected. Late one night, Steeljaw stormed into the garage, fists clenched. "We found out who's been feeding info to the Vultures," he growled. Marcus froze, thinking of the bomb and the sabotage. Steeljaw threw a photo onto the workbench. It was Rusty. Marcus's stomach dropped. "Rusty? That bastard?" Steeljaw nodded grimly. "He's been jealous since I started coming to you. Thought if he cut you down and dealt with us himself, he'd get our business. Instead, he's been whispering to our enemies." Rage boiled in Marcus's chest. He pictured Rusty's smirk the day he fired him, the satisfaction in his voice. Steeljaw leaned close. "The Vultures know about you now. They want the genius who saved my Harley. They want you out of the picture." Marcus's blood ran cold. He hadn't signed up for this. Not the bullets, not the vendettas. But it was too late. Rusty's betrayal had painted a target on his back. That night, as he drove home, a black SUV screeched out of an alley. Headlights blinded him, tires screeched, and gunshots cracked through the night. Marcus swerved, glass shattering, metal screaming. He barely escaped with his life, heart pounding as he sped into the darkness. Marcus had spent his life fixing broken machines, but now his own life was broken. Something inside him shifted. He could run forever, or he could fight back in the only way he knew how, with his hands, his tools, and his mind. The next morning, he walked into Steeljaw's compound with a new fire in his eyes. "Give me access to the workshop," he said. "I've got an idea." For days, Marcus worked like a man possessed. He modified Steeljaw's Harley, reinforcing the frame and tuning the engine for explosive speed. He built custom traps into the bikes of other angels, smoke canisters hidden in saddlebags, reinforced chains designed to shred tires, and even makeshift oil slick systems. The angels watched with awe as Marcus turned their fleet into machines of war. "These aren't just bikes anymore," Steeljaw said, grinning. "They're weapons." The showdown came at midnight on Highway 9, a stretch of lonely asphalt twisting through the hills. The vultures had challenged the angels, and Marcus knew Rusty had fed them every detail he could. Engines roared like thunder as two armies of chrome and leather faced each other under the moonlight. Marcus tightened his gloves, riding at the edge of the angels' pack on a customized Harley Steeljaw had given him. His heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. The vultures charged first, headlights blazing, bullets cracked through the night. Marcus hit a switch on his handlebar, and smoke erupted from his exhaust, cloaking. The vulture rider tried to flank Steeljaw, but Marcus leaned into him, releasing a burst of oil across the asphalt. The man's tires skidded, sending him crashing into the guardrail. One by one, the traps Marcus designed turned the battle. Chains snapped, engines died, and riders crashed in confusion. Steeljaw roared past, bellowing like a beast, and the angels surged with fury. Then, Marcus saw him. Rusty. The old man stood in the distance by a black van, shouting orders, his face twisted with hate. Rage surged through Marcus. He gunned his bike, speeding toward him. Rusty's eyes widened, fear replacing arrogance. He tried to run, but Marcus skidded to a stop, blocking his path. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the past hanging between them like smoke. "You could have been proud of me," Marcus said, voice steady. "Instead, you tried to bury me." Rusty snarled, reaching for a pistol. But before he could raise it, Steeljaw appeared behind Marcus, his shotgun leveled. Rusty froze. "Traitors don't get second chances," Steeljaw growled. The angels closed in, surrounding Rusty like wolves. Marcus turned away, disgusted. He didn't need blood on his hands. Justice, in this world, had its own way of working. When the dust settled, the angels stood victorious. The vultures scattered into the night, broken and beaten. Rusty was gone, whether dead or exiled, Marcus never asked. All he knew was that the chapter of his life was finished. Weeks later, Steeljaw called Marcus into his office. On the desk sat a thick envelope and a set of keys. "You've given us more than we can repay," Steeljaw said, "but this is a start. It's yours." Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was enough money to buy a shop. The keys were to a small garage on the edge of town. Steeljaw leaned back, grinning. "You saved my life, saved my crew. Now save yourself. Build the dream you've been chasing." For the first time in years, Marcus felt hope rise in his chest. He opened his own shop, painting the sign with his own hands. Carter's Customs. No Rusty to hold him down, no chains of prejudice. Just Marcus, his tools, and the machines he loved. Word spread fast, customers lined up, not just bikers but families, travelers, and anyone who wanted their ride treated with respect. Kayla worked weekends at the desk, proud of her brother. And sometimes late at night, when Marcus closed up and the streets were quiet, he'd hear the roar of Steeljaw's Harley pulling up. The angel would sit with him, sipping whiskey, two men from different worlds bound by respect. Marcus often thought about the day he was fired, the humiliation of Rusty's office. At the time, it felt like the end. But in truth, it had been the beginning. Life had thrown him into fire, and he had come out forged like steel. As the neon sign of Carter's Customs glowed in the night, Marcus smiled to himself. Sometimes getting fired is the best damn thing that can ever happen.